Imagine a world where the U.S. dollar is no longer king, a world where sanctions have lost their bites, and a group of emerging giants have control over critical resources like oil, gold, critical minerals. Fasten your seatbelts, because that's what's happening right now. So what we're going to cover in this video is what BRICS is, what countries are members, and we won't go through them all, a short description of the benefits for the member countries. So by the end of this video, you should understand exactly what BRICS is, why it's growing, the massive benefits for its members, and what this shift means for Americans and the rest of the world. Stick around, because the details in the second half could affect your savings, your investments, and the price of everyday goods. Let's dive in. BRICS started in 2009 as BRIC, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, but soon South Africa joined, making it BRICS. Now they just call it BRICS Plus. South Africa joined about 2010. Today, full members include Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Ethiopia, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates. Indonesia and Saudi Arabia have varying degrees of formalization. Now, there's a lot to consider on that, and they also have partner countries, and they are growing. There's also countries like Belarus, Bolivia, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, Nigeria, and others. Today, these nations represent about 50% of the population and 40% of the world's global GDP, nearly half the economy, and it's rising. BRICS has real institutions and real resources. Now, BRICS Pay has come out, and it's dealing with 185 countries, and that's a majority of them. This puts the dollar at threat. Now, the reasons why they may have done that is because the United States has weaponized sanctions. They weaponized the U.S. dollars. You have trade and tariff threats, monetary policy spillovers. They require foreign banks to comply with United States tax laws. In fact, some foreign banks won't take you as an American because of the headache on that. And the disruption of the internal order, meaning that, tariffs can be slapped on you for any reason, and it particularly causes a lot of chaos. Why the aggressive expansion? BRICS deliberately courts resource-rich countries, whether they're rich in oil, critical minerals, agricultural output, and geographically strategic position. It's actually a brilliant strategy. This creates a powerful bloc that negotiates trade deals, sets alternative pricing benchmarks, and it insulates itself from external pressures like the United States. Over 30 countries have expressed interest, showing BRICS' growing appeal. The core strategy is de-dollarization, reducing dependencies on the U.S. dollars for trade and reserves. This protects against U.S. sanctions and policy spillovers. Not to mention that over 50% of the dollars printed actually have a home outside the United States, and when these are no longer needed, they are going to come back to the United States. And there's a really good possibility that we'll have more dollars chasing the same or fewer goods, which spells more inflation. Progress includes bilateral trades in different currency other than the dollar. That doesn't mean that there's going to be a BRICS currency, although there could be, but these steps that they're taking are eroding the value of the dollar, in addition to printing money and all the things that the United States does to erode the dollar. It's just not a good thing. However, you can't really blame it all on BRICS, and you can't blame BRICS for forming. The dollar still rules global finances due to its liquidity and trust, but BRICS is building parallel structures for greater sovereignty. Now, for its members, there are advantages, and they are substantial. They have access to alternative financing without the Western influence or conditions. Expanding markets. You're getting resource-rich countries. You're probably going to pay them better than the United States pays. And you got geopolitical leverage, protection from unilateral sanctions when you're dealing among yourself. At one point, they're not going to need the United States anymore. Technology investment flows, boosting domestic development. Countries gain a platform to amplify their global voice and pursue independent foreign policies while benefiting from collective economic growth. What does this mean for Americans? Weaker dollar dominance and higher import costs, which would, of course, contribute to inflation, rising borrowing costs, and if the demand for treasuries shift, reduce sanction, it may rise borrowing cost if demands for U.S. treasuries shift. Reducing the sanction effectiveness could alter foreign policy dynamics, meaning the United States is not going to have as much influence. For the rest of the world, especially developing nations, BRICS offers an alternative to traditional Western-led institutions, potentially fostering more multipolar governance. Risk includes internal BRICS divisions, implementing changes, and the dollar enduring strength. This shift is going to be gradual and not overnight. However, hyperinflation hits, it starts out gradually, and then it's like a parabolic move on price. In summary, BRICS has formed actually as a way of self-defense, and they're recruiting resource-rich countries. They have half the population, nearly half the global GDP, and they're growing, which means that they'll have more than half. And they're going to be setting their own rules. Whether they're good or bad, time will tell. For BRICS members, I think it is in their best interest. Some of them may be a little leery of leaving the U.S. dollar because of the sanctions and everything, and I can understand that, but I think that if they knew for sure things were going to be good by leaving the dollar and the Western sanctions and the Western red tape, I think that they would be glad to do it. But understanding this and keeping up with it, I think would be a good idea. There are only a few things that you can do. You can invest in hard assets. By the way, I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. But hard assets like silver and gold historically has retained value. Look at the charts. There are some big dips in each, and sometimes are better than others. But overall, I think gold and silver are a good bet. Banks have been hoarding it for over a decade. You might consider investing in BRICS companies, BRICS nations with BRICS. You might consider investing in some of the institutions that are involved in BRICS and some of the countries that are in BRICS. It may be time for Americans to start thinking about international investments. There's going to be new risk and new opportunities, so be diversified. You need to invest wisely. You need to build skills. You need to stay informed, and individuals can work towards not only weathering change, but could potentially benefit from a more multipolar company. Drop a comment below. Which strategy do you find most relevant, or what approaches would you add? Like if this analysis proved valuable. Subscribe for more in-depth coverage on economics and trading. I'm new. I'm still putting out different information, and I will see you next time.